Yes, no case of the Mondays around here alongside Sean Collins. My name is Louie Rabaut, and this is BloodHorse Monday for February 24th, 2025. My sister's birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday, Liza. Sean, how are you, man? I'm back stateside, and I'm not happy about the weather compared to where I was. It's not good.
I know you left the nice warm of Puerto Rico. You came back and experienced the freezing cold of Saturday night, which you were at least lucky. You got to go home after you got off the plane. I was at Turfway all night freezing.
Oh, no.
The horses kept us warm with a great performance.
It was a spectacular stretch run there for California Burrito. We'll get into that in a minute. Of course, racing in the Arabian Peninsula as well become a staple of our international racing scene, Sean, between the Saudi Cup, the Saudi Derby, all of those races. Classic stretch run. For years, Sean, we talked about the Japanese influence on the races, whether it be at the Breeders' Cup or on the Derby Trail the last couple of years, certainly in the Derby last year with Forever Young. Cool to see him win this race, no?
Yeah, it was really cool. We've always talked about him as being one of the top dirt horses in the world, but it felt like he didn't really have that statement victory yet, that big race on the resume. So it was great to see him get the Saudi Cup. So he finally kind of has that one race that you can kind of point towards as being his top performance. And how about Romantic Warrior switching to dirt, running as well as he did? That's probably one of the greatest horse races I've ever seen. I know a lot of people that have been there in person say they probably won't see one as good as that again. What a classic showdown that was.
It's just a spectacular stretch run between those two for sure. But we did, of course, have Derby prep stateside, including in Arkansas. And Cole Battle, who had won the prep for this one, comes back in the Rebel Stakes. Matt Dinnerman on the call here down at Oaklawn Park. And here's Cole Battle. In the stretch.
Hot Gunner is next, completely giving way. Is Hot Gunner. Admiral Dennis still well out of it as they round the fourth turn. Innovators done. Manicat Road still on the lead. Cole Battle for the Lonnie Briley Barnes running a big one. Here comes Cole Battle and Juan Vargas on the outside of Manicat Road rolling towards the lead. Cole Battle at the top of the lane. Manicat Road to the inside. Not done. It's Cole Battle narrowly ahead. Now Sandman's getting rolling. He's third, but he's 7 behind. 16th to go. Cole Battle, 16th left for the Rebel Stakes win. He's on top from Manicat Road and Sandman, who's run out of ground. Cole Battle, the story continues. This fantastic story. Cole Battle does it.
Oh, our guy Matt Dinnerman on the call there. The good stuff down in Arkansas. He's having a blast. You can just hear it. Look, man, goes left-handed, all the things, stared a Baffert trainee in the eye. No big deal. What a run from Cole Battle. Keeps that great vein of form going.
Yeah, what an impressive performance that he put forward this weekend. And it's great to see, Lonnie Briley, the trainer, small-time connection from Louisiana. He was so happy after the race and the post-race interviews. That was so fantastic to see. It's almost like he's still trying to get his head around the fact that he has a horse who's now wins the spot in the Kentucky Derby. 70 points. He's the leader right now. So he's in the gate. And one of the really cool things with this story is connection with the owner, Norman Racing. We had a great feature on them on bloodhorse.com last week done by Karen Johnson, kind of highlighting their relationship. Gave him money to go find a horse at the Texas sale. Said, come back with a good horse. Found Cole Battle. I'd say he found a pretty good one, wouldn't you say, Louie?
Did okay with that. Now the winner of the Springboard Mile, as you mentioned, the Smarty Jones before this and coming into the Rebel Stakes. Have we seen a single thing from this horse, Sean, to dissuade us from thinking that he can't be a contender in the Arkansas Derby? Because frankly, I just haven't.
Yeah, he's shown that he's adaptable. He led the race in the Smarty Jones. He won both the Springboard Mile and this race in the Rebel. He came from off the pace and won. He overcame, what seemed to be a track bias. Before the Rebel, there were 4 mile and a 16th races yesterday at Oaklawn. And he managed to be the only horse to close from over 2 lengths out of it and win the race. Most of those races, the top 3 horses were the top 3 the entire way around the racetrack. And so he was really the only one who put in any type of closing effort. And Manicat Road, he was loose on the lead. He went extremely fast. Those Bafferts, we saw it with Getaway Car last week in the Sunland Derby. Those Baffert horses, when they get that kind of trip, they're always tough to run by. Even though there was a little bit of a fight from Manicat Road at the top of the stretch, once they turned for home, I never had any doubt that by the end of the stretch, Cole Battle was going to end up moving away from him.
I thought Manicat Road showed that he's right there. I think we'll see him back in the Arkansas Derby. I think he'll try the same tactics again under Irad Ortiz Jr., and I think it may go a little bit differently. If he takes a step forward, like we've seen many Bafferts from this prep to the next, It wouldn't surprise me at all, frankly. And that is, like you said, a very classic Baffert style. Come and get me, big boy, kind of feeling to that running style, which, by the way, if you've got to justify it, it works. If you got an American Pharoah, it works, right? So get out front, or an authentic, I guess, even in more recent years, get out front, stay out front for sure. I thought Sandman flying at the end there was real interesting, Sean. And if he can get a better ride ride. Sorry, that's not what I meant at all. Sorry, Christian Torres. If he can get a little better of a path, I think, in the Arkansas Derby, I think he can be a player as well.
Yeah. I mean, I just mentioned that thing about the track bias. There was nobody in any of the earlier races coming from as far back as Sandman was. He didn't get up to win, but he definitely, everybody was looking at him coming out of the Southwest Stakes when he had that horrible start, and he almost got to Speed King at the end of the race. And that's the reason why he was the favorite this weekend. But he showed again, he's got that closing kick that's probably going to be one of the best of anyone going into the Kentucky Derby this year. But the problem with that is you never know if you're going to get the trip in the Kentucky Derby. He's going to probably have to go wide. He's going to maybe run into some traffic. So he's one of those horses where it seems like everybody's going to be like, oh, next time he's going to get it. We're going to have to see whether or not that next time is going to be the Arkansas Derby, whether it's going to be the Kentucky Derby, or if we're going to have to wait later down the road.
On the same day, of course, was the Honeybee Stakes 50-pointer on the road to the Kentucky Oaks. Quietside gets the win here. We hear that name, Irad Ortiz Jr., again in the call from our friend Matt Dinnerman down at Oakland Park.
Few rivals. She's on the rail, but sent to log. Now 8 or 9 lengths behind. Then comes Anonymma. Take Charge, My Lady is past Flashware. Still has a lot of work to do as they come to the top of the lane. 5G shake it up. Outside right there battling is Muhima, and Muhima comes off the turn, challenging with Quietside for the lead. Quietside tries to dig in. Muhima on the outside in second. Now she's losing that position once again to 5G. It's Quietside in front. Quietside, 16th to go. She's got the lead a length and a half from 5G and Muhima. Quietside reaching for the wire under Jose Ortiz, who wins a 4th race today. It's Quietside. It's her graded stakes day.
Of course, Irad runs second in this company. Did get do much of the work on the front end there. Muhima finishes third. I'm sure disappointing for the connections. I think she just needed a race to get back. But hey, Quietside, I thought she did everything right there, Sean. Nothing to really dissect here.
Yeah, I thought the same thing with Muhima. It looked like on the turn she was going to blow past them as they were kind of entering the stretch. It just kind of flattened out late. It was for her first start since winning the Demoiselle, so I'll give her a pass there and see how she comes back. But it was great to see Quietside finally get on in the win column here in these stakes races. She'd run second or hit the board in a couple of those grade ones last year. So to see her finally break through, get that victory, now kind of catapult herself to the top of the Kentucky Oaks standings, clinching her spot. That was pretty cool to see. And it's John Ortiz's birthday. I just saw a video on Twitter right before we came on here where Quietside was getting in on the celebration for the birthday. So make sure you go check that out on John Ortiz's Twitter page. But happy for the connections to see their top filly finally break through.
Yeah, I thought the splits as well. That's the kind of race that was fast. At least it was honest at first, right? Low 23s, 46 and change. With the early splits, I thought a pretty honest pace in that one as well, going the 2 turns there at Oaklawn Park. We're joined by Aron Wellman in the next segment. His name's Sean Collins. I'm Louie Rabaut. This is BloodHorse Monday. Thanks for hanging out with us on a February 24th edition. You were up there for the Battaglia this weekend. One of the great stories that's happened this winter at Turfway Park is the emergence of Irving Moncada as a jockey. He and Tommy Drury Jr. Burst onto the Derby leaderboard with a win in the Battaglia. The call, of course, from our friend Tony Kalo up there at Turfway Park.
And Spirit Rags is still at the back. California Burrito. Here comes Baby Max. Baby Max turns it up on California Burrito, who responds. California Burrito turns into the stretch with the lead in the John Battaglia Memorial. And Baby Max is testing him at the 8th pole. Baby Max now puts his nose in front. Right there with him from the inside remains California Burrito. Nobody else is close to them. California Burrito inside of Baby Max. California Burrito way out in the center of the track from Baby Max.
What question for you there, Sean? Again, Tony Kalo there up at Turfway Park. Who was riding Baby Max?
Baby Max was Louie Saez.
That's right. So, Irving Moncada, man, stared Louie Saez straight in the face that stretch and finally got California Burrito. Still a little green, still learning how to go around 2 turns there. If you watch this stretch right here, the winner is going to be number 5, California Burrito. You can watch all of our episodes, by the way, at the BloodHorse YouTube page. Go find us on Spotify as well if you'd like to watch these episodes. We'd love to have you interacting with the show in that way. California Burrito doesn't want to switch the lead here, Sean, and you watch this horse actually move out. I think about 2 paths here. And Baby Max does react to that. I don't think they needed to throw up an inquiry sign or anything like that. But watch Irving here, about an 1/8 to go, about a 16th to go even. Finally gets that correction, gets the horse to the other proper lead. I thought in the stretch, as good a ride as you're going to see from a young jock like Irving Moncada, watching him develop potential superstar, moving away. This is horse racing, not jockey racing. What do you make of California Burrito's performance? Is he legit on the Derby trail here?
I think he's definitely legit. He's a horse that's developing. I got to talk to Tommy Drury afterwards. He said he's just kind of turned that corner since being at Turfway Park. So that seems to really be benefiting him. Now, that being said, he does have experience and a win over the Churchill Downs surface. So I think this is just a horse kind of coming into his top form right now. Obviously, he's still learning. You mentioned the drifting down the stretch. I was down on the rail watching that one, and it looked to me like they were both kind of drifting. I don't know how much Baby Max was kind of drifting on his own versus how much that was in response. But once that lead change was made on California Burrito, that definitely, just kind of seemed to give him that little extra kick to dig in and fight off. And Irving Moncada, I got to talk to him after the race. And first time I've gotten to talk to him, what a great kid. And he's got a good head on his shoulders. So he's definitely, and Tommy Drury said the same thing about how he thinks this is going to be a superstar jockey in the future. But to see kind of his level-headed ride there as an apprentice, kind of taking advantage of a lack of pace, going up there, out dueling down the stretch. He has no concern at all about the distance either. As soon as I asked him, what does he think about 1.25 miles, he immediately said, not a problem. So I definitely think this is a legit contender. And even though he was on the lead for this race and his previous race, they seem confident he's going to be able to rate back when there's other speed in the race. So I think overall this was a good starting point for them. And it'll be interesting to see how he moves forward.
Army Mule, of course, on the Stallion side there with California Burrito. Sean mentioned his win at Churchill Downs. It was in a maiden claimer. And if you just click and don't look and just see maiden claimer, you would know that it was a $150,000 maiden claimer, which is something. Churchill,
we just talked about that a couple of weeks ago. That seems to be the theme this year. Look for the horses coming out of $150,000 maiden claimers.
All of them. There's just so many, just whatever. Run your horse in those kinds of conditions. Of course, the path through Turfway Park since the new surface was put down, a win from, of course, Rich Strike and a second from Two Phils before Endlessly finished in the top 10 last year as well. Plenty of good finishes in the Kentucky Derby coming off of the Jeff Ruby Trail to the Derby itself. It's time for our interview this week from one of our, someone in the industry, and really cool interview we got to do with Aron Wellman from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. And Sean, you set this up. They've got some exciting horses on the Derby Trail.
Yeah, they have Built, who has been kind of that hard-knocking horse in the Louisiana Derby Trail. It seems like every year we have that one horse that dances every dance. Doesn't always win every single race. You always can count on him to run well. And that's exactly the kind of horse that he's been so far. So we highlighted Built with Aron, and then also we talked about Journalism, who kind of launched himself to the top of a lot of people's Derby lists with a win in the Los Al Futurity last year, and is coming back this weekend on Saturday running in the San Felipe Stakes. So it was great to kind of pick Aron's mind on both those horses.
And you hear me gush about one of their recent runners with the Eclipse folks as well. At the end of this interview, so thanks to Aron Wellman for joining us. Here's BloodHorse Monday's interview for the week. Aron Wellman of Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. All right, we love welcoming in guests here on BloodHorse Monday, episode 4, of course, alongside Sean Collins, Louie Rabaut hanging out with you, and Aron Wellman from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. Really, really excited to have him on to talk Built and Journalism. Not often to have a guest on that has multiple on the Derby Trail. Aron, to be introduced as a guy with a couple on the Derby Trail, how's that feel?
It's an honor for sure. This is what our partners are in the game for, is to have horses capable of allowing them to believe big and dream about the run for the roses. And to be this deep on the trail, late February, early March at this point, we feel very fortunate to have 2 legitimate horses that hopefully can carry us over the course of the next, 8 weeks or so.
Obviously, Aron connected with Derby winner Animal Kingdom in the past. We'll get to that later in the interview for sure. And so you've had that great experience. This year, you've got a horse in Built, third last out in that Risen Star Stakes. Another nice performance from this young colt. Look, early move after Magnitude got loose on that lead track, playing that favoring speed. You wanted to be up front that day. Kind of an uncatchable scenario there for him as far as magnitude. But what did you take away, Aaron, from his performance? You had to be at least a little encouraged.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're not an operation that likes to make too many excuses for our horses, but you alluded to the inside speed bias at Fairgrounds the day of the Risen Star, and it was palpable. We knew we were a little bit up against it. I don't think we expected Magnitude to gun from the outside post, a horse that we had gotten the better of in the Gun Runner as well as in the Lecomte. But kudos to him. I mean, their tactics paid off big time, and he was ultra impressive. Super sad to see him knocked off the Derby trail for his connections. That's just a big bummer. And it's, a stark reality that any of this can be swept out from underneath any of us at any time. But as far as Bilt's performance was concerned, we were really pleased. We were a little disappointed that he didn't hang in there for second, which would have made a considerable difference in terms of the points that he's got on the board. It was the difference between sitting up there with 35, which he has right now, versus 45, which historically has made the gate, which would have made our management decisions moving forward between now and the Derby a little bit easier. But it wasn't meant to be. He put in a big, bold move, from the half-mile pole to the 3/16 pole, and then Magnitude just rebroke and found another stride. But, Bilt has shown up in every single one of his races to date, short, long, inside, outside, slop, coming from off the pace, being up front, so he's a very versatile individual, and he just keeps showing up time and time again. So as long as he keeps telling us that he's in good form and in good health and willing to run in these big races, we're going to keep allowing him to prove whether he belongs or not.
You mentioned that versatility that he's shown so far in the Gun Runner. He went wire to wire in the Lecomte Stakes. He kind of sat back on that muddy track and made that run and just got caught at the end. How much confidence does that give you, especially when we're looking at the big scale of this year's Derby so far, where we see a lot of horses who have won on the front end and aren't necessarily proven doing anything else? How much confidence does that give you that he's shown that ability?
He's just a hard knocking horse. He's obviously got a lot of talent. He's versatile in terms of his ability to be forward tactically in his races and carry his speed. And he's gutsy enough to take dirt and try to work out a trip if he's got to as well. I think this time of year, the biggest question as it relates to the Derby isn't necessarily quality, but it's whether horses can handle the distance. And in the Gun Runner, he got things all his own way and just sort of ran against the wind that day. In the Lecomte, he showed some ability to handle adversity in the slop down on the deepest part of the track. And he kept at it, going, an extended distance, which was good to see. The other day, he sat a stalking trip in the Risen Star, made a big, bold move and wasn't able to sustain it. But I think that if you look at the dynamics of his last two races, he really has had to run against the grain. But it gets us back to the question, does he really want the classic distance? And that's a question that he's going to have to answer on his own. As of right now, our intentions are to move forward to the Louisiana Derby. He will have run in all 4 prep races down at Fairgrounds if we're able to execute that game plan. But we're viewing it as, sort of our Derby. It's still a big, prestigious race with a 7-figure pot. And it would be a big feather in his cap. So we've got 5 weeks from the Risen Star to the Louisiana Derby, which is nice spacing. And if he pops up and runs another enterprising race in the Louisiana Derby, it gives us 6 weeks to consider whether to run in the Derby or not. At that point, he'll have shown to us whether he's going to see out the trip. And if he does, then we'll march on to the Kentucky Derby. And if he doesn't, hopefully we're in position to consider a race like the Pat Day Mile, which is Derby Day, which is an elongated sprint at a mile around 1 turn at Churchill as well. So it's a good position to be in. And talked to Wayne Catalano this morning. Horse is doing extremely well. We didn't train on him much in between the races to this point. So his races have kind of been acting as his major preparation as we go along this path. So he's had a lot of racing, but we've tried to finesse him in between at the same time.
Aron Wellman with us, of course, from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. Really glad to have him here on BloodHorse Monday, episode 4 here. Sean Collins and Louie Rabaut hanging out with you. On the flip side, In a very different place, you have a horse named Journalism. Comes out of last year. Put himself into the 2-year-old conversation last year by winning that Los Al Futurity. He's only got 10 points right now, but it was because of that race. Set to make his 3-year-old debut this weekend. Aron, we've seen historically, if you want to win the Derby at least, this 3-year-old debut is really an important race to see where a horse is as far as his development and how he's coming along as a 3-year-old. We'll see him in the San Felipe this weekend. How's he been since the Los Al Futurity, and what do you expect on Saturday?
Yeah, just super excited about this horse, Journalism. Where his built is slightly a more blue collar individual. This son of Curlin, Journalism, is truly got star quality written all over him. He's a horse that from the time we sent him down to Bridlewood Farm to get broken and put a saddle on his back and a bit in his mouth, he's just shown that he could, in fact, be a real racehorse. We sprinted him first time out for Michael McCarthy, let him take some dirt, did his best running as we would have expected the last 3/16 of a mile, galloped out huge, brought him back in 3 weeks because that was our only option at the time to stretch him out around 2 turns. And he answered the question big time. And then within a 7-week time span from the time he sprinted in his debut, he went and took care of business impressively in the Los Alamitos Futurity. Right after that, he got a little sick on us as a result of a vaccination. It wasn't anything major, but we're viewing it as sort of a little bit of a blessing in disguise because it allowed us to take a step back, get him, refreshed and rejuvenated for what we hope is going to be a big time sophomore campaign. And by all accounts, to answer your question, Louie, he is training like he will go on to bigger and better things at age 3. He's filled out physically. He's always been an imposing specimen, but even more so at this point. And, we just can't seem to get to the bottom of him. And as we alluded to earlier in this conversation, as to, the $64 million question, do these 3-year-olds get the classic distance? He's one that we absolutely positively do not have any concern as far as his scope is taken into consideration.
Well, with the breeding, it makes total sense here. I mean, frankly, if he acts like mom wins a grade 2, I think he'd be fine with it. But of course, the son of Curlin as well. Are you seeing some of the characteristics of mom and dad as well?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate with progeny of Curlin over the years, starting with Carolina, multiple grade 1 winner, Point of Honor, grade 1 filly, and of course Nest, our champion 3-year-old from a couple seasons ago. So he's been very good to us on the filly side of the equation, and it was just a matter of time before we hit the jackpot with a colt. And if there's anything that I can say about Journalism resembling his father and Curlin, it's just his constitution, both mentally and physically. He's a super intelligent horse. He does what's asked of him. He takes it all in. So as far as his presence and his intelligence and smarts are concerned, it's there. And then we all know Curlin was just, sort of a godlike figure, and Journalism's got a lot to accomplish to catch up to his daddy, but there are definitely some physical and some mental traits that we see translating over into his blood.
When you look at the California prep races over the last few years, obviously Bob Baffert being a Hall of Fame trainer, he's always going to be in there with a couple of big horses. Now, Journalism has already beat some of the best Baffert horses last year in the Los Al Futurity. You think about Getaway Car, who was second to him in that race and came back and won the Sunland Derby. Baffert's probably going to have Barnes and maybe another horse or two in this race. How do you see him stacking up with that competition? How much confidence do you have knowing you've already taken him down once?
Yeah, look, anytime you take the Kentucky Derby path in California, you're going to have to go through Bob Baffert. He's the long reigning king of the 2- and 3-year-old scene, if not more than that, in Southern California. And honestly, when we put together this group to purchase Journalism, and then we huddled up between the breeder Don Alberto, who stayed in Bridlewood Farm, of the Malone family and George Isaacs, Bob LaPenta and his team, and Eclipse, we really made a concerted effort to say, okay, once we saw the way he was training down in Ocala at Bridlewood Farm, do we have the goods to go out to SoCal and take on the Baffert behemoths? And, so far, so good. the tests are only going to get that much more difficult. I think Bob's going to enter at least 2, if not 3, in this weekend. San Felipe we'll know here this afternoon, but it looks like Barnes and Rodriguez, 2 extremely talented individuals, are going to show up in the starting gate. And, what's nice is that Journalism showed some tactical ability in the Los Al Futurity. It's not like he's a stamina horse that needs to drop out the back and make one big run. He definitely has a little bit of gas that he's going to be able to put himself in position and hopefully not allow the speedier Baffert types to get too far away from him. And then hopefully his quality and his endurance takes over from there. But look, we're always up for a challenge. Somebody's got to take the Bafferts on at some point, and hopefully it's us. Like you said, we were able to get the best of him in the Los Al Futurity. I think Gaming was probably falling a little bit off form at that time of his campaign and didn't come back and run well after that. Getaway Car, it was really good to see him come back and win a nice race at Sunland last week. So that form is slightly franked, but not having been privy to the inside knowledge of the Baffert camp, I'd say that the big guns are probably the Champ Citizen Bull, who may or may not show up in the San Felipe, but we're going to have to face at some point, hopefully down the road. And of course, Barnes and Rodriguez are very highly regarded individuals. So the waters just keep getting deeper.
Aron Wellman with us from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. Go ahead there, Sean.
Yeah, you mentioned that kind of that decision of sending him out to Southern California. Obviously, both these 2 horses we've been talking about, 2 completely different trainers, 2 very, very good trainers in Wayne Catalano for Built, with Michael McCarthy with Journalism. What goes into those decisions as which horse is getting sent to which trainer?
Well, like you said, both top not elite horsemen in our book. Wayne Catalano's a guy that I've known for going on 15 plus years now, dating back to my days when I was the vice president of Team Valor. And people may or may not remember that Wayne was the original trainer of Animal Kingdom, who ultimately won the Kentucky Derby for Graham Motion. And Wayne did a wonderful job with him at age 2. It was circumstantial that the horse got transferred to Graham at age 3, and he did a great job, taking the baton and running with it from there to historic heights with Animal Kingdom. But after Animal Kingdom won the Kentucky Derby, I had probably hundreds of texts hit my phone right after the wire. But the first one was from Wayne Catalano congratulating me about Animal Kingdom's triumph. And I never forgot that. And I always said that if and when the time came that I went out on my own, I'm going to make sure that I support Wayne. And we've had a great run with him. We actually won the Breeders' Cup Sprint a couple years ago with a horse called Aloha West, who happened to be by Hard Spun. And when we bought Built, a son of Hard Spun, it was very, very clear who we were going to send him to, and it was the Catman. So he's done an incredible job developing him, and it's always fun being in the Catman's camp. He's a wonderful horseman, but he's a great human being and very entertaining, wonderful for our partners. Hopefully we could get him back to the big dance. And as far as Michael McCarthy is concerned, he's just a guy that been close with from the early days, both growing up here in the scene in Southern California. And then, of course, he worked at several barns here in Southern California before shifting out east to be the primary assistant for Todd Pletcher. Had horses with Todd during my Team Valor days. And then when we started Eclipse, when Michael was still acting as an assistant in the Midwest and on the East Coast, and when Michael went out to hang up his own webbings, we were the first to support him and take a lot of pride in that, because Michael, like Wayne, is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Wayne won a couple thousand races as a jockey. He's won a couple thousand races as a trainer, multiple Breeders' Cups. He's a Hall of Famer in my book. And Michael's got some work to do with his own resume, but in a short period of time, he has done incredible work all across the country. So when we decided to send Journalism out to Southern California, Michael, with his background and being able to train classic horses and classic contenders, he won a classic in the Preakness with Rombauer, of course, all the classics with Todd while he was with him and playing an integral role in that. It was pretty clear we were going to hang that white bridle over Journalism's head.
Aron Wellman with us from Thoroughbred, Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners here on BloodHorse Monday, episode 4. Really appreciate him jumping on with us. You bought both of your colts that are on the Derby Trail, respectively, journalism at the Fasig-Tipton Saratoga yearling sale, and then Built at the OBS spring sale. When you are there, when you're with your team, whoever's there, what are you looking for, especially with young colts, trying to figure out who's going to be able to develop into a good 2-year-old, a good 3-year-old, maybe hit the Derby Trail, maybe hit a Pat Day Mile, which, by the way, like if it happens last year, you can still win a Preakness and a Pennsylvania Derby after that. But what are you looking for when you go to those sales?
First and foremost, athletes. We don't have unlimited resources to work with. We're very fortunate to have great partners who support us under the Eclipse umbrella with our brand, and then some strategic alignments like the Bridal Woods, like the Bob Lapentas, like the Don Albertos, and of course the Gary Barbers and the Mike Rapolis of the world. So we've got great strategic partners as well. But we're always looking for value for money. And when you go to a yearling sale like the Fasig-Tipton Saratoga sale, it's going to be very difficult to seek out value because it's the cream of the crop. It's a very boutique sale. There's not a lot of volume, so there's plenty of time for everybody to do their homework and land on the horses that they think are right. So you're really looking for elite prospects in that environment. And that you're going to get a lot of pedigree to back it up. So when we go to the Fasig-Tipton Saratoga sale, you got to stretch the pocketbook a little bit. And with an individual like journalism, buy the classic Sire and Curlin out of a grade 1 caliber Uncle Momare like Moquettism, you're going to have to pay up. And, I think $800,000+ was a pretty penny to pay for him. Hopefully he's well on his way to proving worth that money and then some, potentially, the home run hitter, to come back clean up for us, because we're going to be wrong way more than we're going to be right at these sales, but all it takes is a horse like journalism to really knock it out of the park and make up for a lot of the failures we're inevitably going to encounter. When you go to the 2-year-old and training sales, obviously you get to see a lot more of them physically, whereas in the yearling sales, you only get to see them walk in the flesh and sort of monitor their presence and their class and their, character, so to speak, the intangibles. When you go to the 2-year-old and training sales, it's more of like an NFL combine where you get to see them display a little bit more of a skill set. Obviously, going an 1/8 of a mile or a 1/4 of a mile with a gallop out isn't exactly what you expect of thoroughbreds, because they're going to have to run at least 6 furlongs and hopefully beyond. So we were really just looking for some speed and athleticism, and we've had success with the Sire hard spun. So when Built came on our radar, he was just a really athletic, sturdy individual with a good mind that we thought just had racehorse written all over him. He was actually pinhooked by a friend of ours, Eric Sparks, who's a partner in Eclipse as well, and he retained an interest in him. He's one of my neighbors here in Del Mar. So that was a nice, like, kind of all in the family vibe, but the horse had to stand on his own merit, and he did. And thankfully he's delivered the goods. But like I said, when you go to these sales, there's so many smart, sharp, intelligent, shrewd bloodstock agents and owners, principals out there. There's so much information at your fingertips now that, the horsemanship has to show out and really prove. Because no stone goes unturned at these sales anymore. There's no secrets. There's no putting anything past anybody. Maybe you'll get lucky and be in the right place at the right time and catch some people sleeping at the wheel, and you get a little better value than you would otherwise. But it's a war anytime you go to any of these auctions, anywhere domestically in the USA. And of course, our reach extends into Europe and beyond, Australia, down under. So, we're really trying to hone our skill set, stay disciplined, get value for money. But it's wonderful competing against some great horsemen and women year in and year out, and trying to draft the best athletes that are going to represent the baby blue and black Eclipse silks to the best of our ability.
You mentioned earlier Animal Kingdom, how you were involved with Team Valor at the time that he won the Derby, and I know you started Eclipse soon after that. Did you learn anything from that experience guiding a Kentucky Derby winner kind of through the lead up and into the race that has really helped benefit you with horses like journalism, like Built, now that you're off on your own?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you got to treat all these horses like individuals, but experience is key in these situations. You have to have the talent, you have to have the soundness, and you have to have the mental constitution for a horse to be able to carry itself through the qualifying stages and then be at its best come Triple Crown season for the first Saturday in May and hopefully beyond. Animal Kingdom was a special colt. He was pretty unexposed by the time we got to the Derby. He had actually never even run on the dirt, so that was a very unique experience. But it just sort of ingrained the notion that a horse has to earn himself to the big dance. And back then it was graded stakes earnings that got you into the gate as one of the 20 stalls. Now it's a point system, which is a little trickier, I think, than it was back when it was graded stakes earnings, because you have to strategize a little bit more and you have to keep your eye on where everybody stands. So that management process is a little bit more unique nowadays. But at the end of the day, our focus is always on doing what's best for the horse. And if the horse is good enough to earn himself into the gate as one of those 20 entrants come the Run for the Roses, then chances are they're going to make it there on their own volition. And our partners understand that. It's always horse first, aspirations and dreams second. And if we do right by the horse, they're going to repay our partners and deliver the goods for them.
All right, I've been promising to gush on a horse that you own because I couldn't figure out why no one was betting on her last year. And her name was Anisette, and she ran in a couple of spots last year. How much did you just enjoy no one noticing how good she was, and you could just go and win tickets and not have to think about it? I mean, you had to love that part, right, Aaron? Come on.
Yeah, look, owning horses is the ultimate gamble in and of itself, but I think we're all gamblers by nature. Otherwise,
Sure.
we wouldn't be in this game. That's the common denominator. No matter what sector of the industry you're in, everybody's liking to put a wager on a horse. And she was a pleasure to have in the stable. 3-time Grade 1 winner, multiple graded stakes winner, showed up every time we put her out there on the racetrack at the highest level. Those are so hard to come by. We've been fortunate to have several of them throughout the years and do it year in and year out, but you get your hands on a filly like that. And it's just, it's an honor to be associated with them. And of course, you have so much confidence in them and you just want them to do it for themselves because you know how good and classy they are. For the partners who that's what they're in this for, and they put their hard-earned money into the game to own these horses or for the opportunity to potentially have a horse as good as Anisette. And then, of course, if the opportunity arises where you think you could sneak a wager in and
do that too.
Cash a bet, we're always happy to do that as well.
We'll ask him about Candy next time he's on, but he's Aron Wellman. He's from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. We really appreciate him joining us here on BloodHorse Monday. Safe trips throughout the spring, Aaron, and hopefully you'll have to come here, and by then the weather will be nicer on the first Saturday in May. Be well, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for thinking of Eclipse, and please keep doing what you guys are doing for the industry. We appreciate it.
All right, very good. Thank you. Aron Wellman with us from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. On the other end, we'll talk with Frank Angst from BloodHorse at bloodhorse.com. Our Stallion of the Week segment. That's next. All right, and thanks again to Aron Wellman for joining us earlier in the show there from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. Very nice to have him on as part of BloodHorse Monday. Thanks so much for joining us here, Sean Collins, Louie, Rabaut, and of course, friend of the show, Frank Angst. You'll see him quite a bit on here with us. I'll go ahead and remove that so you can see the top of my bald head there. Frank, of course, the editorial director over at BloodHorse, bloodhorse.com, the magazine, all the things. Frank, how you been, buddy? How you doing this week?
Pretty good. Hey, Louie.
Good,
hey, Sean.
Stallion of the Week conversation continues as we roll through the Derby Trail. I've got an idea of who it might be after a spectacular weekend, but of course, we leave it to you, our resident Stallion expert.
I mean, it's all things Cole Battle this week. We had to go beyond the borders of Kentucky for this one, all the way to Coal Front. It stands in Louisiana at Red River Farms. The horse is an underdog story from the start. Coal Front, he's a 5-time graded stakes winner, won the Group 2 Godolphin Mile. But he stands for $2,000. But, in terms of the classics, if you're wondering, is distance going to be any problem for Cole Battle. I mean, besides what we've seen, where he looks more than comfortable going 2 turns, he's by Stay Thirsty, who was placed second in the Belmont Stakes, and he's out of a mare by Mineshaft, who won the Jockey Club Gold Cup at 1.25 miles and earned Horse of the Year honors at 4. So, yeah, there's every reason to hope that that Cole Battle's going to actually do better the longer he stretches out. So it's very exciting, and very exciting to see a regional type sire get this type of attention. I mean, the horse this year, he has 11 winners from 30 starters, which is 37%. So this is his biggest earner, but he's a nice sire if you're looking to race in Louisiana or race beyond Louisiana, as the case may be.
We see such a robust state-bred program in Louisiana. It makes sense that, frankly, for this kind of cost, Frank, that someone would want to get in the program down there. And like you mentioned, like a Jonathan's Way, we also think of, is an Ohio bred, this kind of stuff on the Derby Trail. Do you find yourself being affected at all, Frank, when you're looking at your handicapping, trying to figure out who's going to move forward? You see those KY letters. Does that change how you feel, or are we just looking
most of your horses come from the top breeding for a reason, or what's perceived as the top breeding. But you learn something every year, and you just never know what combination might lead to a really good horse. And that looks like the case here. I'm really excited about this horse. He's shown he can win from different paces. He's pace type scenarios. He won on what I think was a strongly speed favoring track yesterday. So I've seen enough. I think highly of him.
And when you get into a cold front in a Louisiana kind of situation, man, this having a millionaire son ain't the worst thing ever. He may become more than just a Louisiana sire for sure. I wanted to hit it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when you start in those state-bred programs, you have that opportunity, but there's no cap. If you have a terrific horse, you can go on to open categories of racing. So it kind of gives you a couple chances there. And this horse started at Evangeline Downs and has just kept going up and up, undefeated on dirt. So just really exciting horse.
It really is. In the Aqueduct this weekend, in the Gotham, we'll see a bunch of New York breds as well within that race. So, you never, like you said, you never quite know where horses are going to get their spot. Of course, you can check out all of Frank's writings about stallions and different things at bloodhorse.com. Go ahead and go check him out over there. And look, I know you talked to Chance Moquett this week. He's been charged with essentially relooking how we look at the claiming system within horse racing within North America. Can you kind of update us on the progress of that project?
Yeah, we had a nice story at bloodhorse.com a few weeks ago and BH Daily. I find a Google search works really well. Search Blood Horse and ratings. It should come right up. Chance Moquett will also trigger that. And really what Equibase is looking at is giving racing secretaries just another option to offer as a conditions for races. I think on the claiming end, it makes a lot of sense. You have these horses that have run out of conditions. By that, we mean maiden conditions, allowance conditions, and they're not quite good enough for stakes yet. But the trainer and the owner, they don't want to necessarily risk losing the horse. It's a good horse. And, the claiming system has worked well for years, and that can continue. But this is another option where every horse would be assigned a rating. And if the racing secretary wanted to, it could be as easy as, hey, tomorrow there's a race at 6.5 furlongs for every horse rated between 60 and 70. So you wouldn't, maybe it's older horses. Yeah. It could be males, fillies, mares, whoever wants to show up that has that rating. And I think it would be simpler for a lot of racing secretaries just to see, they would have a good sense of what horses are available on the backstretch. They could just look at the ratings, and that could be really convenient. It could be something that's attractive for them. And for the horsemen, it would be nice to have races where you don't necessarily risk losing your horse. And I think for handicappers, it's kind of a nice thing for anyone who has sat down and read a condition of a race that takes about 500 words to describe. And, for horses who haven't won on a Tuesday in 6 months.
Yeah.
So, I'm being silly.
Allowed 2 pounds. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think we've all been there and tried to say, well, exactly what is this race? It's just a simplification of things. And so Chance Moquett, who's well known as Ron Moquett's son, and he's come on at Equibase in charge of special projects, and he's really hit the ground running on this. And right now they're forming committees. They really want input from all the people that will be impacted: racing secretaries, tracks, horsemen, and handicappers. So it was really good talking with him for the story, and I thought we'd reach out to him for the podcast. Here's what Chance had to say.
America, we're hopeful can be a mechanism to allow racing secretaries and owners the opportunity to run their horses more in competitive fields in a nutshell. But it's going to be an algorithmically based statistic number rating that will hopefully provide a new way of looking at how horses are competitive, at what levels they could run at outside of what exists today.
Rating systems have been used overseas in quite a few jurisdictions.
Yeah.
But this would be new to the U.S., but it's not completely new to the world, is it?
No, that's right. I think most established and sophisticated racing in other countries are all using it in some variation today. Most of them are using it with a group of individuals, a group of handicappers. It's manually rating their horses in their jurisdictions as well as internationally. So we're excited to bring some modern day technology to it and add that to America.
What are some of the reasons that could be useful in America?
There are lots of reasons that the rating system can be useful for America. There's primarily we want to have owners and racing secretaries the opportunity to run horses more often.
Right.
We want to give people an option to run in competitive fields. We want to give handicappers an option to bet on a competitive field that maybe there's not an overwhelming choice in that race. And then there's also some downstream things that we feel that it can be safer if horses aren't changing hands every race or every few races, and so all sorts of benefits that can come from it if we can get it right.
It doesn't sound like you envision this taking over every race.
Yeah, no, I think that the condition book in the current state is going to maintain. I think that the ratings system and the ratings option to run in a rated race will be something that is intriguing. I think it'll be interesting. I'm hoping that it's incentivized in some way down the line, and by running in a competitive race that you're going to take your horse home in. But in no way do we envision this replacing allowance races and replacing claiming races or replacing state bred races. We just think that it could be an interesting way to put new horses against new faces and give bettors a good opportunity to tackle a big card.
And talk about your arrival at Equibase. I mean, this was kind of one of the things that fell on your plate immediately, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. My dad's trainer, Ron Moquett. I've been raised in the sport of racing, at least as a fan for my whole life. But I worked in transportation logistics and also spent several years in the technology sector, leading big teams and doing all sorts of project management and everything from sales to operations and data consultation. So it's sort of a mesh of both worlds to be from my experience in a barn, my experience in racing, and then also have my corporate experience come to meet at a place like Equibase is really neat. And this was one thing, probably the most glaring thing on a laundry list of projects that I'm hopeful to be able to tackle as head of strategic projects here. But it's certainly one that I think can have the biggest lift for the industry as a whole, which is ultimately why I came here. How can we make a difference and keep pushing the sport forward?
And where's the ratings system at in terms of this process? Kind of what's the latest? Where is it at?
Yeah, we're early days yet, but pretty significant progress overall. We've met with every committee at this point in time. We've got 4 working committees and a strategic advisory group. We've gotten lots of good feedback, and we've gotten lots of ad hoc and sort of hallway conversations that's come from some of the early conversations. And so we've got our marching orders to come back with some data to all of our groups. And the way that we're not going to meet just to meet. I know that Rick Hammerly has a term that he uses all the time, corporate quicksand. We're very aware of that, and so we're going to make sure that we're not falling into that. We're only gonna meet whenever we have something to talk about with our committees. And so right now we're in action item 1. So I've got some things to drive home from a data analysis standpoint, and then come back to all of the groups with what we found and figure out what the next marching orders need to be.
Sounds like Equibase wants to hear from a lot of different people on this. Why is that important?
So that's something that's important to me personally, and something that I wanted to really bring to the table here is I feel like the industry can be at times a little bit myopic, and so for me, I wanted to make sure that there was a seat at the table for all corners of the industry, and fortunately Equibase and the Jockey Club and that leadership was totally aligned with that. And so we wanted to develop a crew of individuals that we felt represented the industry as a whole, inclusive of handicapping and wagering, inclusive of all sorts of horsemen and all of the downstream vendors like sales companies and breeders and ultimately racing secretaries, trainers. And so we wanted for everybody to have an opportunity to tell us what we thought might be wrong or right. That way we can hopefully iterate and get to the end goal of pushing us forward.
Sounds good. It'll be great to see how it takes shape.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Thanks, Chance.
Thank you.
Everybody's got that nice library background at BloodHorse.
Yeah, I think his bookshelf's bigger than my bookshelf. So he's very, very knowledgeable. There's,
coming for the bookshelf title. I don't like it, Frank. You're my bookshelf.
No, he's knocked me off. So, but no, just some really good stuff, and you can see where the Equibase is looking for input from a lot of different areas to really get this right as they get going.
Well, there's no reason in an era where other sports, and certainly horse racing is, but just the analytics era that we see in other sports, Frank, and we can't translate to that, something like that for horse racing. And, thinking from, the ownership side and the training side, I think it's very easy to see, very straightforward at least, to see how this would be beneficial for them. I think, though, for the better, this would be really great as well, where, one of the grand challenges is the class question when you're handicapping, right? Was that starter optional field as good as the allowance field, as good as a black type or something like that? Figuring those things out. The rating system won't replace that at all, but it'll be another tool.
Yeah, it's just, I think it simplifies a lot of things, and the past performances are still going to be on the page, and you take it from there. But that's what the claiming system has done so well for years. It's matched, it's put together evenly matched horses. I think a rating system has the potential to do that as well. So it'll be exciting to see it come together, I think.
Frank, BloodHorse.com, of course. Go find us on all the socials and at the website as well. Frank, appreciate you, buddy. I'm sure we will see you in the coming weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Frank. All right. And then, of course, we always use the end of the show as a chance to talk about the races that will be coming up this coming weekend. The Derby Trail gets heavy on Saturday, 350 pointers, Long Island, Miami, and in Arcadia. Sean, let's start. We'll talk first about Aqueduct. We'll talk about the Gotham. We're going to see some interesting horses in here. And I have to remind myself this time of year all the time. Yes, we're trying to figure out who's going to be on the Derby Trail and can they get the 1.25 miles. But also we have to wager on the race in front of us. And a horse like My Batoli, for example, gosh, if you've ever had a sire who's great for a one-turn mile in New York, give me Batoli.
Yeah, exactly. He's definitely gonna fit this type of distance and racetrack. You're looking at, the Gotham of the last couple of years has always been that interesting race because it is the one-turn mile, and you get 50 points towards the Derby. So I know we've had a couple times over the last years where the Gotham winner ends up not even running in the Derby. Right. So it'll be interesting to see what we get out of here. I think the key horse for me looking at this race is McAfee. See how good he runs. A half brother to Torpedo Anna, obviously the horse of the year last year. He was supposed to run in the Jerome Stakes earlier in the year, and he had to scratch. So now he's finally getting his year started. 1 turn mile, I think, will be interesting to see kind of how he gets his hooves on the ground for the season, and then build forward to the Wood Memorial. So I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, I'm interested in Sand Devil here. Ran in the running last time out. We're watching that Equibase speed figure click into the triple digits here, and so interested to watch this horse move from that race in the Runyon state bred race into open company here. Many state breds in this race actually on the New York side of things. I think it's 4 out of 10, something in those numbers. And so interesting to watch those horses move from, those local preps into the bigger races. Should be a fun one when we get there on Saturday. We move south to the Fountain of Youth Stakes. Tons of horses in here. Very interesting. A horse that broke his maiden in the street sets comes back here at Sovereignty. One that, a couple weeks ago when we had Frank on, that important first race back as a 3-year-old. Sovereignty, one of those horses we've yet to see on the Derby Trail, Sean, that I'm really looking forward to seeing on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this as well. Now, I know Bill Mott, the trainer, has kind of made a couple comments saying that the racetrack, the way it's designed, doesn't necessarily fit to his style. He's a deep closer. At least he has been up to this point. You have that short run into the first turn. You have the short stretch as they're finishing at the 16th pole with this distance that they're running on Saturday. So I think, obviously you want to see your horse win when they come off the layoff, but I think for this specific instance, it's more important to just make sure that he's closing well. Even if he doesn't win, say he runs 3rd or 4th, what I want to see is him picking up ground late for him to be picking off horses, and that'll be the good building blocks going forward.
Sovereignty in here, as is Burnham Square, won the prep for this one in the Holy Bull. Is that you and I, we gushed over this guy last time, the move that he made from the back of the field on the back stretch, was able to move into company, goes out in the 3-path, pulls away. Think he can do it again?
I think so, yeah. He's definitely, I know I mentioned it, I believe, when we talked to Ian Wilkes and Clay Whittam a couple of weeks ago, but he's my number 1 horse on the Derby Trail right now. I just think he's been the most impressive. And we just talked about with Sovereignty how we're going to have to see how he closes on this racetrack. Burnham Square has already proven he can do it at the same kind of layout with that mile and the 16th distance. So the thing that gives me confidence with him is the fact that he is able to make multiple moves throughout the race. And it'll be really cool to see him going forward. But if you remember when we talked to Ian a couple of weeks ago, he did say that there are a couple more things that he kind of wants to teach him. He said he was going to train him differently this time. So we're going to see whether or not, it's going to be the same performance or if this is going to be kind of a learning building block into the Florida Derby.
River Thames also going to be in this one. Wowed in a 1-mile prep at Gulfstream Park last out on Holy Bull Day. We'll see him step into Graded Stakes company for the first time in that race as well. And then out west, we already talked to Aron Wellman about journalism. We're likely to see, we'll have the draw right after this show goes off air, but of some kind of combination of Barnes and Rodriguez and that kind of thing. A bit of a Baffert showdown, but gosh, we get journalism again. Should be a fun San Vicente.
Yeah, it should be a great race this weekend in the San Felipe. You're looking at, you're looking at journalism coming back off his layoff. I know we just talked to Aaron about it, but he's already proven he can take down the Bafferts. I know a lot of times in these prep races, you're looking at the Baffert horses, you're kind of giving it to them on paper, but we saw last year with Stronghold in the Santa Anita Derby. If you have the right horse, they can come in there and make some noise. So I think it all is going to depend on how journalism comes back off that layoff. I know Aaron spoke highly about how he's doing coming into the race, but he did have that little bit of an illness, so you don't know how he's going to come back off of that. So, and Barnes, I mean, with him, I'm sure distance won't be a problem with his pedigree, but this is the first time stretching out to 2 turns. So if he's going to be vulnerable, maybe this is the time, and maybe it's a horse like journalism. Maybe it's a stablemate. We'll have to wait and see.
Obviously, plenty to talk about next week on our BloodHorse Monday episode. Then we'll recap those 3 races, look at the Oaks preps as well, get you ready for your horse racing week with another guest, and of course, an update from our friends at BloodHorse and BloodHorse.com. For Sean Collins, my name is Louie Rabaut. This has been BloodHorse Monday for February 24th of 2025. Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday.
The BloodHorse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at BloodHorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.